Dino De Laurentiis called me after I made Class of 1984. It was very successful, and he said he wanted to make a picture with me, and I found this project Year of the Dragon that we developed. But then there was this movie that he offered me, Firestarter, and what had happened was John Carpenter was originally set to do it, and there was a script, actually, a John Carpenter script, but it had nothing to do with the book. He veered completely away from the book. And so De Laurentiis, he said, well, I have this project ready to go, Firestarter, instead of this Year of the Dragon we were developing, which he later made with himself later. And so this picture, he said the budget was $15 million, but this Universal didn't want to spend $15 million. I said, how much do they have? He said $10 million. I said, oh, to me that's 3 times the budget of my last film. I said, I'd be happy to be the biggest budget I've ever had. There's no problem. Well, how can you make this huge epic for that? I said, well, in a non-union state like North Carolina, without all the unions, we can make it. And so, but we did a lot of scouting before that in Rome and in Texas and in Mexico, a lot of places we scouted. And we ended up, shooting in North Carolina. But that's how I originally got involved. And De Laurentiis was his property, and he wanted to make a picture collector. And so, we wrote the script, and we followed the book exactly. And it was completely adapted from start to finish exactly as the book. So when Stanley Mann started the project, he in 3 weeks he had the entire script. Actually less than 3 weeks, and it was like 300 pages. And then we went through, and it was the entire book, and we edited it down to 120 pages. And Stanley Mann said, we can't turn it in yet to the studio. Let's wait a little longer, because if we give them the script in 2.5 weeks, they're going to think it's no good. So we're finished, but let's just hold on to it for a little bit, so it looks like I spent more time. I said, okay. So we turned it in finally a week or so later, and the first thing Dino De Laurentiis said was, when I turned the script in, he called me in his office and he said, this just follows the book exactly. And I go, well, I said, yes, how much did you pay for the book? He said, $1 million. I said, well, that's right, that's why we used it. So we wanted to make the book, and the other script was completely different. So he said, wow, that's right, you followed it and it works. So that was great, and that's the script that was shot. And then during the filming, before we started, Stephen King came down to the set, and there was a whole discussion with him of how to do these various things, like her hair flying and her fists clenched, and how to make this firework, and the nose bleeding and all.
There were a number of they were all American. I was the only English actor, which is a bit strange, and felt a bit vulnerable about the whole thing. And faces that you knew very well, brilliant people around you, and from past films. And I had this prolonged, quite a long speech, I remember. And there, on my right, I think, was George C. Scott scrutinizing me. And I had this longish speech. And I thought, well, I better get this right first time. Anyway, I worked assiduously at trying to get something from it. And I delivered it, and I think I did very well. It felt rhythmic and no hesitations, and it had a certain verisimilitude, I thought. And unfortunately, which was not a very bright thing to do, I delivered the last, I said, cut, print, next. And I thought, I wish I hadn't said that. It was a sort of rejoicing story, and I wondered if it would carry, if people would really take to it. But marvelous, the lovely young actress then playing the lead, which she did fearfully well, I thought. And and a brilliant cast around me, no, undoubtedly a very, very fine cast. So that made it all okay, but the business of bursting into flames, as I said earlier, I think that the great test of an actor, it seems to me, is when you're watching a ghost appear, or when you're seeing somebody burst into flames. It needs all the energy and imagination you can conjure. It's quite the opposite saying, well, Sergeant, now what did you think of the evidence at the time? It's the very opposite of that. So it calls a certain invention, I think.
I was one of the few actors that was hired to be one of the people that got burned, a G-man, so to speak, a government man, the FBI guys, right, that were looking for this subversive group of people, you know, and but all the other actors around me were really stuntmen. So I got like an arm burn on me, right? Where like they set, quarter of my body on fire. And the producer said, well, we're going to give you an extra, $300-400 to be able to, to do this and stuff. So I said, oh, okay, good, okay, right. And I went over to the stunt guys and the coordinator and the others, and they all kind of sat in a group. And once I said, listen, the producers just come to me and they want me to do a stunt for them. And they want me to do an arm burn or whatever, whatever it was called. And they want to pay me this much money. And I said, is that a good price? Right? And they all kind of looked at each other slow, one way and the other way, and they said, oh, yeah, that's an okay price. And I knew they were not telling me the truth. I knew that they got more money for getting burned the way I was going to get burned. But they weren't going to tell me that, That was their own like little, their secret society. And I said, okay, all right. But it was really that I've always remembered that story, the look that they kind of had between each other, like this guy's getting hosed, but we're not going to tell him he's getting hosed because we want to make sure we get more money when we do our stunt, But they were great, we all got along really super and everything else.
At acting, because I've got terrible stage fright, and it was given to me years ago, and I developed it. But I can do bit parts, you know what I mean? So I've just had them over the years throughout my career, and Glenn Randall, the stunt coordinator that was hired to do Firestarter, he realized that in reading the script that he could recommend to Mark or whoever the powers to be, that he could hire stunt guys that could do the dialogue. So that's basically how I got the job and became involved in making Firestarter.
Working with Glenn Randall Jr. was fantastic. He was such a professional stuntman, and he designed a lot of these stunts that were done with the men on fire and people flying on trampolines on fire. That had never been done before, and diving out of the way of these fireballs. And he was an expert with horses, so he trained these horses for a month to run out of the burning barn, and he did a fantastic job.
George Wilbur and Gene Hartline are stunt guys that were all in the same stunt group, the Stuntmen's Association. And so I'd worked with those guys over the years in a lot of different jobs. Great people, good stunt guys, and that's the kind of people you want to have around you when you're doing that stuff for safety, or I'm safety for them if they're doing it. So,
and I think I would say, because I did go to the offices a number of times and stuff like that. I think there was this sense of from Frank Capra Jr. You from the producer on down, you felt like this was a family, and we were all this family that was here in North Carolina. We were all not from North Carolina. Most of us were from other, from New York or from California. And there was a sense of home away from home. There was not there was a sense of feeling good about the process, where we were, and I remember it was beautiful. And I knew nothing quite about the South or anything else at the time. I didn't realize this incredible history that Wilmington, North Carolina had throughout our nation's history. And so I got to go to Wrightsville Beach, which is a beautiful beach. Unlike I don't think the Outer Banks are there or whatever, but the beaches were beautiful. But everybody seemed to be pretty happy to be there, and it felt safe, which is not. There wasn't chaos. I mean, I've been on sets where there was chaos, and I mean, I'm sure there were problems. Mark will tell you what problems he might have had. I'm sure, but he somehow we were that was kept from us, or it was kind of insular.
Oh, yes, of course, I did. The director, yes. Well, he was a delight, as I recall. I remember a delightful, harmonious relationship with us, and of course that helped through all the problems that one had. No, it was terrific. Yeah, fine, and deserved the fame he got, I must say. Yeah.
What a cast! What's just an amazing cast that they were able to put all those people together, and that they were available. That's usually, forget that, somebody's got the money to pay them whatever their rate might be or whatever, right? That they could put everybody together, So, and I would say, that's Mark. He's had a good casting person working with him, but he's the one that has to say yay or nay in terms of thinking that person would be right for the character. So he made good choices. So I think
I thought it was a darn good movie. Martin Sheen, Scott, all of them, David Keith, Drew, everybody was great. And I thought Drew did an exceptional job for just a child, and she's just wonderful. I used to go in Drew's the classroom, the trailer that she had classroom in, I used to go in there once in a while and sit and talk with her. And I asked her one day, I said, Drew, give me an autograph picture. She, what? And her mom, rather, got the picture, and Drew autographed the picture for me. And as you can see, it's printed, but it was so sweet. I just thought it was marvelous, and I treasured it. I'm blessed to be here and talking about this movie and being a part of this Blu-ray.
When I look at a film, then I'm amazed at how well it holds up. And I would say that it holds up because one of the reasons that it holds up is because of the texture that's been given because of the score that goes with the piece, or the songs that have been picked to be used in the piece.
And the music helped in a lot of the scenes in Tangerine Dream. That they had done Sorcerer, and they were quite famous group at the time from Germany. So, they were hired to do the soundtrack, and it's interesting, they did the whole score in Berlin, and then they sent, all of the music. But normally, the music is geared to each individual scene. But what they did, I said, wait a minute, when it came in, I called them and said, well, this music, there's no numbering or coding where it all goes. And they said, well, just put it anywhere. It works in any scene, any place you want to put it. And that was true. So that wherever you tried this music, it worked throughout the movie in any scene. It was the most amazing thing with a score I'd ever heard of, that you just delivered like that.
Also, wir müssen wissen, dass die Aufträge meistens über das Büro von Edgar gingen, weil er war mehr oder minder in dem Management am besten involviert. Ich war sozusagen eher derjenige, der gerne im Studio saß und sozusagen vor einem Monitor mit einem Videorekorder mir die Szenen angeschaut habe. Und wenn ich denn einen Zugang gefunden hatte zu den Szenen, zum Beispiel, wir reden über den Firestarter, hier über Motive oder Themen, die auf Charlie the Kid passten, konnte ich einfach mich hinsetzen, entweder einen klavierähnlichen Sound nehmen oder am Synthi arbeiten und über die Art von Improvisation zu dem Bild dann die Komposition zu finden. Ich habe also auch Notationen gemacht und. Sodass die Wechselwirkung zwischen Bild und dem, was ich dabei in Realtime empfunden habe, sehr, sehr direkt war, was mir immer unglaublich viel Spaß gemacht habe. Es gab natürlich nur ein Problem, wenn ich etwas hatte und ich durfte es nicht vergessen, das war das eine. Und das zweite ist, wenn ich nicht Zeit hatte, es zu notieren, musste ich es sehr schnell aufnehmen. Und so kommen auch Christoph und Edgar ins Spiel, die dann teilweise auch die Maschinen bedient haben, sodass, wenn wir zu dritt waren, einfach auch das, was wir gerade Realtime in den Fingern hatten, sofort auf eine Bandmaschine aufnehmen mussten. Ansonsten war es verloren. Wir hatten ja noch nicht wie heutzutage Rechner, in die du einfach spielst und die sich das merken. Du kannst es storen, du kannst aus riesigen Bibliotheken Sounds nehmen. Das war noch nicht der Fall. Also wenn wir etwas hatten, dann musste es sofort auf Band aufgenommen werden. Wir haben uns angeschaut und wussten, er verlangt alles von uns, was wir überhaupt bis dahin sozusagen in der Bandbreite, in der Pipeline hatten. Er verlangt enorme Klangwelten, um eben die Fähigkeiten von Andrew McGee zum Beispiel oder natürlich auch diese Pyro-Fähigkeiten des Feuer zu entfachen von Charlie bedeutet. Gleichzeitig war uns vollkommen klar, wir müssen Themen finden, wir müssen Klangfarben finden, die auf dieses 10-jährige Mädchen passen und können nicht nur brutal einfach irgendwie reinhauen. Ich weiß, dass wir damals ziemlich erschöpft waren, weil uns das wirklich in die kleinsten Kleinigkeiten gefordert hatte, dass diese Bandbreite an all den Dingen musikalisch abzudecken. Und ich glaube, ich wäre gar nicht in der Lage, neutral über diesen Film zu reden, weil wenn du 3-4 Wochen die Hauptdarsteller siehst, wenn du mit ihnen quasi lebst, wenn du, was sie durchmachen und Charlie the Kid ist ja vollkommen verzweifelt auf der einen Seite, auf der anderen Seite liebt sie ihre Eltern, ihren Vater und trotzdem hat sie diese Begabung, die sie gar nicht will, Feuer zu entfachen, Pyrokinese. Wenn du das alles über 3-4 Wochen so hautnah erlebst und durchlebst, hast du gar keine Möglichkeit, diesen Film neutral zu beobachten und ihn zu beurteilen, wie jemand, der vielleicht gar nicht weiß, wie das alles entstanden ist und der sich ins Kino setzt und sagt, oder so, oder ja, gut oder nicht oder so. Ich könnte da gar keine Äußerung dazu machen. Ich bin immer noch, wenn ich jetzt darüber rede, immer noch so in dem Film drin, dass mir auch hier eine Neutraltür und ich glaube, ein riesiger Behälter mit Eis, damit sie das Feuer tatsächlich auch beherrschen kann und das Feuer zurückgeht und so weiter. Das waren riesige Szenen und Herausforderungen, die wir musikalisch angehen mussten, wo wir auch synchron mit dem Bild natürlich sein mussten, sonst macht das überhaupt gar keinen Sinn. Überhaupt, ich habe immer noch Drew Barrymore, die kleine Drew Barrymore vor Augen. Das war, fand ich unglaublich schön. Ich habe sie leider nie kennengelernt, aber sozusagen ihren Werdegang als 10-jähriges Mädchen in dem Film oder später andere Filme, die ich dann auch mit ihr gesehen habe und einfach quasi einmal Teil des gewesen zu sein, um ihr ein gewisses Thema zu geben. Das sind schon herausragende Augenblicke in meiner Karriere, die auch so dann auch nicht mehr wiedergekommen sind.
When I saw the finished film 40-something years ago, I don't remember. I remember it being very extravagant. Well, mind you, as a writer, he is extravagant, isn't he? People bursting into flames and things. Makes demands upon the viewer's imagination, it seems to me. And I think that's what I felt. A bit like one or two other films I've been in. You have to trust the punters, the audience, to contribute. I mean, it's part of their duty to contribute to a piece, play or whatever. They become part of it, or should become part of it. If they're not, then you fail.
Actors that can make actors comfortable. And that's a real gift because they want them to be comfortable in front of the camera so that they can get what they need for their film. That's a skill I think that's part of Mark's texture. I mean, that's a good thing, you know.
It was one of the great experiences of my life, the movie, because just being, you know, a long shoot like that and working with Dito De Laurentiis on the movie and Frank Capra Jr., who I actually met Frank Capra there because I went to a birthday party for him. And, you know, the whole experience was just amazing. And then to build all these wonderful sets and to have, which was a big budget at the time, $10 million, you know, to make a film like this from a best-selling book, the whole thing was like one of the great experiences I've ever had, you know, in the motion picture business, and to learn from a totally experienced producer, knew things about movies and the cinema, and it was all, you know, fantastic deal. And then to work with Drew Barrymore, who subsequently just kept going in her career, became, you know, a major star, and this was, you know, her second, you know, really big movie after E.T. So, you know, it was just, you know, all around, you know, an amazing